in thy sight over eye. There we go. We're good.
Love that. I love that. It's loading up. I'll let you know when we're live. Just takes a second here. Alrighty. Let's see if we are live on Facebook. Can't quite tell. Hold on.
Facebook took a major shift last week.
Oh, we are live. All right. Hi everyone. Welcome to Hemp Your Health. This is going to be an exciting episode. Give me 1 second. Can't quite tell. I need to do one thing.
Facebook took a major shift last week.
We are live. All right. All right. So 1 second here. Welcome to Hemp Your Health. This is going to be an exciting episode. Give me 1 second. Can't quite. There we go. I think we're good. All right, Leslie. Hi. Sorry, everyone. I know that was a little confusing. I have several screens going at once because the Facebook Live and the Zoom that Leslie and I are on don't coordinate in real time. We're about 20 seconds off. So today's episode is the first part of a 3-part series on hemp, hormones, and the endocannabinoid system. I'm going to introduce Leslie in a second. And before I do, I want to explain the intention of this 3-part series. As a master nutritionist, I've always found that hormones are confusing. And it wasn't until I started studying the endocannabinoid system that the endocrine system, which Leslie will explain, started to make sense. So our intention is to support women from puberty through teens and reproductive years through pre and post menopause and beyond to increase your understanding and demystify how we relate to the endocannabinoid system, hormones, and how hemp helps. Our expert speaker today is Leslie Carol Botha. She is the co-author of this amazing book, Understanding Your Mind, Mood, and Hormone Cycle. This is a must. She's also was a regular talk show host and hosted her own show called Holy Hormones Honey. She was the director of an early intervention and education program for at-risk girls. And she is the founder of Matrix Marketing Media, a boutique social media art agency. Leslie, welcome.
Thank you so much, Christy. We have talked about this for so long, and it's finally here, and I'm excited to be here and to be part of this. And thank you for the plug on my book. My work is also included in 4 other books. My interest since, oh my gosh, many years back, has been getting to women to understand the shifts that take place during the hormone cycle. There has been a whole body of information lost to women, and that is about the endocrine system, how hormones affect, as we've mentioned already, mind, moods, and behaviors, which not only affects us, but it also affects our partners and our children. But to kind of put this in a larger perspective, women have been controlled from the beginning of time, from the Garden of Eden. I mean, we can go back that far. Eve Ensler did a wonderful talk, TED Talks on this, and said Eve knew she landed in the wrong garden, which is why she was trying to hand Adam the apple to say, remember the natural ways. Women's menstrual cycles, hormone cycles, are an integral, vital force that is a part of a larger picture of all of the cycles that govern this universe. And we have lost touch with that.
Yeah.
But we live it. We see it every single day. The sun rises, the sun sets, the moon rises, the moon sets. It's winter, it's summer, it's fall, et cetera, et cetera. Yet we have no idea of the importance of circadian rhythms in our bodies.
Yep.
That every cell dances to circadian rhythms. That those cycles, that innate understanding that women had about the power of living with cycles, which formed matriarchal societies, is essential and vital to the survival of this planet. There is a phrase that I like to use, and I'm going to throw it in right here, and it's a Native American proverb, and it says that a nation is not defeated until the hearts of its women are on the ground. And we are there.
We are
have rates of maternal mortality that are higher in this country than in many underdeveloped countries, or developing countries, I should say. Premature deaths amongst women are higher in this country than in many developing countries. Stillborns, premature births are higher in this country. And we spend much more on healthcare than many, many, many other countries. What could be a denominator?
I want to get into what dysregulates these hormones to begin with, but I think we need to give our audience just a little catch up about some definitions, because we're going to be throwing away around some names or terms. And I want you guys to all know where we're at, and you can always be posting questions. So normally we do a Pearl, but this is important. We're going to do a history, a little brief of history real quick. Leslie and I have been looking at this, and this is amazing. Before the Marijuana Tax Act, in the Pharmacopoeia, which was the medical journal that explained how to use plants as medicine, there are over 100 references for the use of cannabis for women's health issues. Cannabis was the leading recommendation among all prescriptions for healthcare. Now, Leslie, can you explain what the endocrine system is and what a hormone is, so that we're all on the same page?
Okay, endocrine system is the body's radar from the pineal gland in the top of the brain, which brings in external influences, external cycles, external vibrations, and sends it down through all of the endocrine glands, which are also aligned with the chakras in the body, to the root, to our genitals. And this happens for men and women. This is as I mentioned, it's a radar, but it's vibrant, it's alive, it's thriving, and it needs to be honored and respected, and the cycles that go along with that need to be honored and respected for all of these regulating hormones, or regulating organs, I should say, to function. Let's move into hormones. What are the hormones? Hormones are the body's symphony, the frequency, the harmonic frequency, the rhythm, the vibration, the chemical messages that go from the brain, from the pineal gland, all the way through all the endocrine glands, and are transmitted out to every cell in the body. Those are the messages. What happens when the messages are skewed?
Yes.
We have dysfunction. We have breakdown. It's like being on the phone with you, Christy, and we all know this. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? That's what the hormone is trying to do to the cell. Can you hear me? I'm out here. Where's the receptor? But the receptors are all gunked over, so the hormone can't get into the cell. There are blockages. Our bodies have become so filled with toxins and sludge that does not even move through the body, that are the hormones, the messages get skewed. And when the messages get skewed, if I'm calling you, and saying, your mother's in trouble and you need to go to Boston. And you say, okay, oh my God, my brother's in California. He's in trouble. I got to go there. That's what happens when there's hormone imbalance and hormone dysfunction. So we need to get back to what regulates and sustains the body and the brain. And you and I both know that it's not medications.
No, in fact, one of my favorite things to say and remind people of is the body's not deficient of pharmaceuticals. And speaking of not deficient of pharmaceuticals, what feeds this endocannabinoid, or what feeds the endocrine system, and what helps, like, why are we so dysregulated? What have we done to have not only the receptors mucked up, but maybe an over or underactive hormone response?
Oh my goodness. Where did we start? It's called endocrine disruption. Everything in our life is an endocrine disruptor. Anything that crosses the blood-brain barrier is an endocrine disruptor. And I could go on about laundry dryer sheets, shampoos, perfumes, plastics are a big one. People do not microwave in plastic. Makeup, the list goes on and on and on, but we're not going to go into that. The big one, for the purpose of this show, because this is what women are suffering from the most, are synthetic hormones, synthetic hormone birth control. It has, since the 1970s, been on the market in one form or another. I'm going to get back to that in just a moment. The hormone birth control movement has been called the largest uncontrolled experiment in medical history. And we are really starting to see the results of that disruption, not only in women, but also in our young girls who are going into puberty at an earlier age. Now, let me back up with a little history, because in order to understand how we got here, we have to know where we came from. Women have borne the burden of birth control so that men could have their free sex with us since the beginning of time. In the Margaret Sanger, we're not going to get into that too much, but she was very concerned, certainly as an advocate, as a feminist, as a women's health right activist, and really pushed for what was called the magic pill. When I came into this conversation in the 1970s, the late 1970s, it was the tail end of many of the great feminist movements in the 1960s, which, by the way, were only successful because women had access to feminine hygiene products for the first time. They weren't relegated to their homes 2 weeks out of the month because they didn't have fem care. But anyway, that's another story. But when I came into this conversation, we were all about women's rights and choice and our freedom. And every time that we laid down and spread our legs, that we didn't have to have a baby afterwards. And that was happening for hundreds of years. And women died an early death because of it. And because we didn't not understand that every child that a woman has depletes vital nutrients out of the body, there were a lot of children being born with physical, neurological disorders. The mother went into mental illness, mental trauma as well. There was no understanding, as you know, of nutrition and what that's all about. Back to this. In the late 60s, in the 70s, women had control of their bodies. They had control of their birth control, meaning we had the pill, we had the diaphragm, we had condoms. We could start, we could stop any single time. Now, what has happened in the last, I think I added this up, 50 years? Birth control has now taken control of women.
Oh, well put.
And this latest generation of products, birth control products on the market, progestin birth controls, are creating havoc, depression, suicide ideation amongst women. We are now being implanted, injected, and inserted with chemical hormones that have a long life in our body, that are wreaking havoc in our body. And every time we go into the doctor's office, this is what's being prescribed to us. So we no longer have control. Birth control has control of us. We go in to have to see a doctor for birth control. Then we say, oh my God, I'm anxious, I'm depressed. And he goes, oh, it's all on your head. And then we have to go in and beg for another form. And then by then they're putting us on estrogen birth control, progestin birth control. And it's like a ping pong game. The endocrine system just gets whacked out, totally whacked out. And so by the time we hit menopause, most women are just a wreck, and most marriages become.
And all everything that you're describing actually is a way to explain stress. This is very stressful to the pituitary gland, to the hypothalamus pituitary axis, this big axis in our body that regulates stress, hormones, health, metabolism, sleep, all these functions. And so now we have our bodies stressed out, dysregulated. You're picking up the phone. I hear go to Boston. You said go to New York. I heard brother. You said mother. And women are kind of termed as crazy 2 weeks out of the month. This also has dysregulated the endocannabinoid system, which is the master signaling system. And when these two big systems aren't aligned, communicating and signaling clearly, we do have a dysfunction. And so what do women do? Because I'm sure a lot of women listening right now are on birth control and they're thinking, well, I don't want to get pregnant. And, birth control has helped my periods, my excessive bleeding, my headaches, my...
Wait. Birth control has not helped your periods. Birth control puts you on a chemical bleed. It's not a period. It's not menstruation, and it's not healthy. It's chemically regulated. In fact, the birth control pill will decrease the size of the hypothalamus in the brain. And so when you think about that, we're being lobotomized. That's how I think about it. And I could go on from there, but I had to stop you right there because that's one of the most common misconceptions. Oh, I'm going on the birth control pill, or I'm going on the IUD, or I'm going on whatever it is to regulate my period. No, you're not. You're going on these things and you're actually being sterilized. Yeah. Because it shuts down a part of your brain, it shuts down ovulation and sets you up for a chemical bleed that's regulated by synthetic hormones.
And okay. Let's explain how important the hypothalamus is, because it literally balances the release of hormones in the body. And it's the interface between the brain and the rest of the endocrine system, which Leslie was explaining is also on our chakra system, which affects our frequency and our vibration and how we're inputting and outputting to ourselves in the world. And the hypothalamus is also loaded with CB1 receptors. So what do women do? I mean, because people are like, their main thing is, I don't want to get pregnant. How do we help them? How do we bring women back into functioning with functioning hormones and a functioning endocrine system?
The first thing is to bring men into the conversation. I mean, men have not been part of this conversation since day one. That's a big part of the problem. There's a great shift now from women moving away from synthetic hormones, even though ACOG is recommending them. That's the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and mandating or recommending birth control use with these chemical hormones that I mentioned, the IUD, the injection, the implant, the IUD, as I just said, as in girls as early as 12 years old. That shuts down the endocrine system. Puberty is the most fragile time of a woman's life, as well as the premenstrual phase, as well as the transition into menopause. These are not medical conditions. They have been made into medical conditions. These are not medical conditions. So we need to get back to a place Christy, with the endocannabinoid system and understanding that master gland and understanding that everything that we inject into our body is interfering with that system. We need to get back to a place where we can start living with circadian rhythms again, living with plant-based, I don't want to use the term medication, plant-based herbs. Maybe you have a better term. Plant-based foods, plant-based herbs, all right, that help bring our body back into rhythm. Because right now, we're just dying. We're not even dying. I look at people and say, you're disintegrating. You're not even.
Yes. And I want to explain to our audience too, like the plant-based medicine, like how she's describing. Last week, we talked about plants are like people and people are like plants. Plants, hemp, all these pharmacological, the plant kingdom is a pharmacological treasure. And plants are course correcting just as much as synthetics are dysregulating. So we have to look at what we've done to dysregulate, which Leslie is explaining. Synthetic hormones are the numero uno, and then a lot of the environmental toxins. And now course correcting through life, like diet, exercise, hemp, having more plants than even synthetic food. I know it's not called synthetic food, but if your food hasn't come from a plant or an animal in a very long time, or you don't even recognize it as a plant or an animal, that may be disrupting.
I call it live food versus dead food. If you want to live, you eat live foods. If you want to die, you eat processed foods. It's as simple as that.
It really is.
And it is,
yes.
But also awareness. Let me talk on that a minute, and I'm losing track of, let me put my glasses on to see where we are in time. There is a sacredness to all of this. And when I got into this in the 70s, I was blessed to have the director of the family planning clinic where I worked take me into her library, her office, and she had a library of women's books written by women, which are not available to women. I mean, they're out there. We can all order them. We just have no concept. Mythology, religion, history, anthropology, politics, ergonomics, astronomy, astrology, all discovered by women. Why? Because of cycles. There is a sacredness, and this should be a wake-up call to everyone. Is the sacredness is what is being suppressed in women. The power that we bring to the table is through the sacredness of our being. Hello, I mean, we bring life into this world. We nurture this life. We're losing touch with that. Here's another tidbit for you. Years ago, a science journal came out with and said, aha, we understand why the mechanism of action of why the maternal body does not reject the fetal body. And then a few years later, they went, whoops, that mechanism has broken down. And we are now in a place where the maternal body, which is so undernourished, so out of balance, so out of whack, so toxic, that when a woman gets pregnant, the body perceives that fetal energy, that fetal body, as an invader, because it so threatens the maternal body. And we are seeing this with the high rates of postpartum depression, premature births for one thing, but then postpartum depression, which is a term that we're familiar with, I grew up with, and then it was turned into anyway, whatever, it's morphed into maternal mental illness. So right after birth, women are put on synthetic hormones and they're given an antidepressant, which then passes right into the big baby if a woman is nursing. I mean, we've lost this sacredness of who we are, the power that we bring by our very presence, our very essence to life, to relationships, to our children, to our husbands, partners, whatever gender that may be. And it's all together. We can't separate that. And that's what hemp can do for us as a plant-based herb, is to get us back into that sacred space of understanding our relationship into all of life, instead of living in fear and shame and stigma because we say, what's wrong with me? Because for 2 weeks out of the month, we're doing great. And then 2 weeks out of the month, we're just flat on the floor. And everyone's saying, what's wrong with you? We're saying, what's wrong with me? And we become totally disabled. Now, I talk about morphing from postpartum depression into maternal mental illness. We've also now come from premenstrual syndrome, which most of us are familiar with, and have now morphed into what is known as premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which, according to a Harvard gynecologist, has been chemically induced by these progestin birth control methods that I've talked about briefly, and there are hundreds of Facebook groups filled with thousands of women all over this world who are suffering from this severe dysphoria. And because they are suffering, their husbands and families are suffering. I always saw women as the nucleus of the atom. Mm-hmm. And so when you're that atom, that nucleus intact, then your electrons and protons, which are men or children, and our lives cycle around that. But when that nucleus is broken down, it goes back to that Native American proverb that I mentioned, and the hearts of its women are on the ground. These are serious times. I mean, we no longer have to just be aware, we need to wake up. Yes. We need to make some major changes in our lives, if not for ourselves and for our young daughters. And we need to be adding hemp to our daily regimen. We need to be adding CBD to our daily regimen to help our bodies self-regulate. Again, we need to be eliminating the toxins in our environment that are making us estrogen dominant, and for men as well, not just for us. Yeah. We need to be in our kitchen. We need to be the healers again in our kitchens.
Oh, I love this. And I want to elaborate on your point about women getting PMS, miscarriages. At the time of ovulation, there is 100 times more anandamide, which is a signaling molecule that our endocannabinoid system makes in our uterus than there is in our brain. It doesn't mean it takes it away from our brain. It means that the body's naturally signaling this huge area for reproduction, cleansing, cycling, etc. And when we don't have these signaling molecules, and that CBD can help with, then we have major disruptions, like Leslie was saying, inflammation, pain, mood, more stress, trouble sleeping, and we're so dysregulated because we're not signaling, listening. Our body can't connect. We're going to Boston when we should be going to New York. I think it's my brother. You said it's my mother, and we need help.
And this is being passed on to our children, who are now experiencing these things: depression, anxiety. In fact, suicide amongst teen girls is higher than, I believe, every other demographic of suicides. Every other demographic, age group, teen suicides. That should be huge. Again, a lot of these teens are being put on birth control at an early age without parental consent, I will add. Without informed consent, I will definitely add. But we need to bring more awareness to this whole area. Now, just one example, when I was working with at-risk girls and developed a menstrual health education curriculum, which we can talk about another time, and I'd love to share with your followers. These girls were set 13 to 17. They were already in jail. Many of them had been sexually abused and traumatized. I created an art project for them, charting their cycle, stickers and markers. Be that as it may, the data that I walked away with showed that over 90% of these girls had their periods while they were in jail. What does that mean? They were acting out premenstrually because no one has ever bothered to tell any woman that when she, right the week before she gets her period, not only do her hormone levels dive, her immune system takes a dive, which is why we have more infections, herpes outbreaks, UTIs, which is why we go trotting off to the family planning clinic every single month. I saw it with my experience working there, but most importantly, no one's ever bothered to tell us that alcohol and drugs over here right after your period, not a problem. Have the 3 or 4 drinks. Not a problem. You can handle it. Over here, you're flat ass under the table.
Yeah.
And that's what happens to women. Hormones take a dive, the immune system takes a dive. We have no tolerance to alcohol, to drugs, to surgeries, to dental surgeries. In fact, there was a timing of breast cancer surgery study that came out years ago that showed that breast cancer surgery on either side of ovulation has a much better outcome than right before the period. And I contacted the offers and said, what the heck? Where's the media attention? And they told me, women out of the University of California, San Diego, we tried and no one was interested.
Wow.
And here we are all these years making our gynecology appointments, our surgeries, our dental appointments around somebody else's schedule, totally ignoring where we are in our menstrual cycle. And we get up more in the morning, right before we get our periods, and we feel like crap. Oh, but I have a doctor's appointment. Oh, I got to go in for that vaccination. Oh, I got to go run that 5K. That even puts more wear and tear on the body and tears down this natural cycle, this master system that Christy's been talking about, and to a point that we can no longer function.
Yeah. So this is part 1 of a 3-part series. Today was sort of the 101. We have hormones, we have an endocrine system. It's regulated by the endocannabinoid system. What happens and what are some of the effects of the hormones being dysregulated, especially for women? And now we understand that we are very vulnerable premenstrual cycle, and cycles are normal. Everything in nature cycles. So when we disrupt that cycle, that cyclic cycle that every part of nature in our body, in our cells, in our organs, and our glands are going through, when we disrupt that, we are not connected. And when we are not connected, we are dysfunctional. And that dysfunction can appear as a manic, depressive, anxiety, suicidal. And most people are looking for medications because that's how we've been trained and taught. And we are here to help you understand that your body can course correct, that your body can self-regulate, and that your hormones and your cycles are a very, very important part of this. Leslie, you're going to come on 2 more times. We're going to go a little bit deeper into hormones. But till then, how can people get a hold of you and find out more information? This is incredible.
My website is lesliecarolbotha.com. My email address is leslie@lesliecarolbotha.com. I have consulted with women for years. You may think that this is horribly complicated. It's not. The body naturally wants to repair itself. All it needs are the right tools. The endocannabinoid system, repairing the endocannabinoid system, living with cycles, eliminating some of these toxins in the body, replacing with sound nutrition. All of this can be done, and all of this can be done where people can see an effect in 30 days. And I want to close my segment with a quote that I think is really important, that the great feminist Eve Ensler said and summed up women's experience in 1 sentence. And pay attention. Hysteria is a word used to make women feel insane for knowing what they know. We know what we know. We know what our bodies need. Do not let other people tell you it's all in your head, that you don't know what's going on in your body. You know. We need to take control of our bodies again.
Oh, Leslie, thank you so much. Thank you all for listening. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Join our team. We are here to help educate. This is how we are going to course correct ourselves as individuals, and that's going to spread to your community, and then it's going to spread to larger communities. We are here to help. Leslie is a founder and pioneer in this topic of hemp hormones in the endocannabinoid system. If you have girls, friends, sisters, etc., please share this with them. We want you all to be radiant, aligned, signaling, and getting a clear message. You deserve to be healthy. You deserve to enjoy your health. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you.